I'm so delighted to be able to speak to you this afternoon. Educating in the context of COVID in a regional educational setting has never taught us so much about the importance of building community and about valuing those relationships in such diverse contexts. It's also taught us about standards of teaching and about tenacity of regional educators when faced with uncertainty, adversity and calamity in their classrooms, in their schools and across universities. I've been very fortunate in my career as a teacher and as an educational leader to have worked in urban schools and also regional schools. But there is one point of difference that I'd like to point out today, and that is that we breed them really tough here. Our teachers that come from a regional context are tough. Add a pandemic to the mix, and what you will find is enormous fortitude, courage, resilience and agility. It takes courage to teach when everything around you that was constant is now an inconstant state of change, shifting at the same time as the pandemic rages across state borders, neighbouring communities, down a hill, across a river. Teaching in the context of the pandemic has indeed been a roller coaster, an experience with twists and turns that are indeed unpredictable in the educational landscape. But there have also been enormous opportunities for us to grow as a profession, to dig really deep into our communities and to improve, to innovate, to adjust what we do and to lift the standards of our practice. So on behalf of educators of this great region, I thank the ongoing work and the commitment of the Queensland College of Teachers for safeguarding our professional acumen by ensuring that we continue to uphold high standards of practice that are worthy of a world-class educational system. I congratulate QCT on their 50 years anniversary for supporting Queensland educators and for going boldly and leading other states in our history for the mandating of teacher registration. As a college principal, I look forward to continuing to share this commitment with QCT, a commitment to improving education in Australia and for developing, empowering, extending that commitment to our early career teachers that are coming through our universities and for growing the expertise that we have in highly accomplished teachers and in lead teachers. Congratulations to the Queensland College of Teachers. Another 50 years, we need you behind us. Thank you.
Gee, this sort of brings back a few memories because back in those days when I was at the Board of Teacher Education, we used to come up here every year and talk to graduating students, and I would have stood in this exact place and tried to tell graduating students what teacher registration was all about and why they had to pay $3 a year to get it. When Noreen and I went through our pre-service teacher education, pretty well all of the teacher education institutions were run by the education department itself. So they ran everything from school to teacher education and then posting of teachers. So in the mid-1960s, the Commonwealth had a review of higher education and decided that the time had come to increase their spending on education, especially advanced education, for the future of Australia. And so they set up a system that alongside the universities, they would have colleges of advanced education. And the teachers' colleges were put into that category. They'd be funded by the Commonwealth Government, and each state would have a board of advanced education that would act a bit like a university senate to supervise the course development and accreditation of courses in those colleges. And alongside the Board of Advanced Education, or under it, depending how you look at things, they had a series of course assessment committees for different fields of study. And in the case of education, the Board of Teacher Education was to be set up to become the accrediting authority for the former teacher colleges who'd now become colleges of advanced education. So theoretically, the Board of Teacher Education was subsidiary to the Board of Advanced Education. And alongside the accreditation activity, it was given responsibility for the registration of teachers. And that was quite an exceptional activity. I only came along in 1979. My predecessor, Ned Sjogren, was a former officer in the education department, and the chairman of the board when I first arrived was Arch Geimer, who was a former Director General of Education. So the Board of Teacher Education at the time was very much a government body that was overseeing the preparation of teachers and the teacher registration system in the interests of the department. The other people who were watching on were, of course, the Teachers' Union. They'd had a few run-ins about teacher preparation during the 1960s. You've all heard about the 8-week wonders, I suppose. There was a proposal that because they were a bit short of teachers, like they are now, one way of coping with it would be to get some grown-up people who had a bit of a background in education and give them an 8-week course and get them out into the schools to fill up the classrooms. And so from that time on, really, the Teachers' Union was very strongly in support of bringing in a system of teacher registration. So the initial efforts in teacher registration were a bit tricky. They brought in a basic requirement of a diploma of teaching. 3-year diploma of teaching was obviously the basic requirement, but in the schools, just about half the teachers were 1-year trained or 2-year trained. And so the Board of Teacher Education had to bring in some sort of bridging arrangements, and if you had a certain amount of recent experience, you could get provisional registration, teach for 1 year and then get full registration. If you had less experience, well, you could get provisional registration provided you agreed to upgrade to diploma of teaching level. And if you had even less recent experience, well, you had to upgrade your qualification first. So there was quite an industry in the upgrading of teacher qualifications from 1- and 2-year trained to diploma of teaching. And I remember on a bit of an occasion like this, we were visiting Townsville and went to a meeting with teachers, and we were discussing the upgrading course. And one lady stood up and she shook her fists and she said, "It's not upgrading, it's degrading." And we were a bit stunned, and what's all this about? And she said, "Well, they're making us do subjects out of the pre-service course. We already know all of this stuff, and the pre-service teachers are being sent to our classrooms to learn how to do it. So why do we have to go back and do the same sort of subjects they're doing?" And that led to a thorough review of the upgrading courses that were offered to teachers, and most of them were able to finish within the equivalent of 1 semester full-time rather than having to do it mathematically and do 2 years if you're 1-year trained and 1 year if you're 2-year trained. And well, it must have worked, because a few years later I was chatting to a teacher outside a graduation ceremony. She'd just been awarded her upgrading diploma of teaching, and she said, "Look, when I was told I had to upgrade, I was really angry and upset, because she had 2 or 3 little children and her husband was there, and it was obvious that she was having a pretty busy life without having to upgrade." And she said, "But you know, now that I've done the course, I realise how good it was, and it's made a big difference to the way I teach. And you know what, I'm going to go on and finish my B.Ed. So we sort of gave ourselves a bit of a tick for that. And it's really wonderful to see that the work of teacher registration is continuing, and what's more, it's not sort of tied in with a government board overseeing what teachers are up to. It's now in the hands of teachers themselves, and that's really what the group in the photo out the front, the old original board, was hoping for all through. So congratulations QCT on filling out the remainder of the 50 years after I left, and we wish you all the best for the future.
Better give you a bit of background because I'm not a Queensland trained teacher. I graduated from Toorak Teachers College in Melbourne in 1958 as a 3-year graduate, and it was a trained infant teacher's certificate, not a baby. It was the early grades 1, 2 and 3 of primary, and for the first couple of years I taught in Victorian schools, got married, had 3 kids, and what else did we do? At the end of 1967 we moved up to Papua New Guinea in Port Moresby, and that was the beginning of a 5-year full-time teaching for me, having been accepted. I really learnt a lot on what I didn't know, and then I had to do something about it. But then we decided we better come back to civilisation, and so we settled in Brisbane. And so I waltzed into the department, as one did in those days, and said, well, what do I have to do to be a teacher here? And so no one had heard of this TITC, but fortunately the Victorian Education Department were able to assure them that I was was a qualified teacher. So from 1973, and then I found out that they were going to be compulsory registering teachers. So I thought, right, well, I may as well, if I'm going to be teaching for the next X number of years, I may as well get registered now. So hence I didn't know it was volunteering, but I did, and really I'm glad I did. And when I was offered a position in one of the Brisbane schools, I thought, right, that's it. So that's when I did it all. And my initial year was in the state system, and then the year after it was in the private system. So, and this has been the story of my teaching career since then, that I've taught in the state system, in regular classrooms, 1, 2 and 3, and then I've moved over to special ed, and again I was doing upgrading and lectures and tutorials and finding out all the things that I needed to know. And the special ed time was another exciting time for me. Because in regular teaching I found there were so many children who needed help, and I didn't know where to go to get that help for them. So I think I discovered. and of course there were other times when I was working with autistic kids with language disorders. So, it was the whole gambit of special ed, which if you can be, I could say I really enjoyed it. And it was a challenge almost every day, but no, it was great. So for I guess almost 40 years of being in Queensland, I had all these different positions, and it was relatively easy because there was an umbrella over me. There was the registration of teachers, which I kept up, and I did so the whole time. In fact, when I decided it was time to retire, I kept going. I paid my money for another year. Nobody wanted me after that. So I thought it was time to retire. I've missed it, but anyway. So I think that's about all. And so it's been a whole gambit of different ways of teaching and different sorts of teaching, and it's been a joy, and I'm just so grateful that the board was registering teachers right from that word go. And I was quite happy to pay the money. I grumbled every year because it went up every year, but no, it was good. So in retrospect, I realised that all my experiences and development as a teacher in Queensland had an overall umbrella, which I've just said, registration. Registration ensures that teaching in all spheres remains on the highest standard possible. Thank you.
Colleagues, I'm really delighted that the University of Southern Queensland is hosting the Toowoomba celebration marking the 50th anniversary of the Queensland College of Teachers and its predecessor institutions, and particularly as a teacher registration authority. It's a wonderful legacy and future. The University of Southern Queensland graduated its first small cohort of 12 teachers in 1977, and when we were the Darling Downs Institute of Advanced Education. And we have a long history of working with the QCT and its predecessor institutions to ensure our graduating students meet the very high standards of teacher registration in Queensland, and I acknowledge my colleagues from the School of Education joining us today. USQ is also working closely with QCT now to ensure that we have an innovative, high quality set of teacher education programs that meet national and state accreditation requirements. A key role for QCT has been undertaken since 1971 to ensure quality of initial teacher education programs are offered across Queensland. We're grateful for that advice and collegial relationship, and thanks, Deanna, it's lovely to see you again here today. At USQ, we are acutely aware of the shortages of teachers in regional, rural and remote areas, and we know students who study at a regional university and do their placements outside the major metropolitan areas are inspired by their experiences and seek opportunities for careers as teachers in regional and rural areas. Teacher education, as all of you are no doubt aware, is the subject of much federal government interest, with major reforms having taken place as a result of the 2014 Teacher Education Ministerial Advisory Group, or TMAG, and their report, Action Now, Classroom Ready Teachers. This reform included the introduction of non-academic entry requirements for prospective students and the literacy and numeracy tests for initial teacher education, or LANTITE, and the graduate teacher standards, so quite a suite of new reforms through that process. Another federal government review, the Quality in Initial Teacher Education Review, is currently underway. But through all these changes and challenges, QCT have provided a guiding light and steady hand, and their advice and assistance has been invaluable to staff in our university, and particularly in the School of Education, and we thank and acknowledge QCT for that advice and support. Our programs and the quality of our graduating students has been greatly enhanced by the support and guidance and our relationship with QCT, and we look forward to continuing our strong relationship in the years to come. Thank you.